Hi, in this video, we are going to register microservices to Eureka server. So let's go to STS. Here, my Eureka server is already running. In the package explorer, under 03 Book My Hotel microservices, you will see 5 Spring Boot projects. So there are 4 Spring Boot projects for microservices. So this is for registration service, this is for search hotel service, and then for hotel and booking service. And I have the 5th Spring Boot project for my web application, that is Book My Hotel web application. So let's look into one of the microservices project. So I'm opening this search hotel service project, and here in the form.xml, let's look into the dependency. So I have added this dependency, Spring Cloud Starter, Netflix Eureka client. Okay, so I've added my Eureka client dependencies over here. Then let's go to the main class. And in the main class, I have Spring Boot application as an annotation, and I have also added enable Eureka client annotation. So when the dependency is added and this annotation is added, we know that Spring Boot kicks in and does the auto configuration related to Eureka client and expose all the specific fields related to the Eureka client. Now let's go to application YAML file. In the YAML file, I have specified the server port, which is 9002 in this case. So when we are going to start this microservice, it will start on this port. Okay. And then I have specified spring.application.name as search service. So when the microservice will be registered with the Eureka server, it will be registered with this name. Okay. And now there is this property that I have configured, eureka.client.service URL. Actually, I need to tell my client where is my REST endpoints of the Eureka server. The value of this property is a map. A map is a key value pair of zone and the URL of the Eureka server endpoints, Eureka server REST endpoints for that zone. So let's say I have 2 zones, then I will be specifying zone 1 and its URL, zone 2, then its URL, and so on. But in my case, there is only one Eureka server running, so I will have to use the key default zone, and I will be specifying this URL. In this URL, I know that my Eureka server is running on localhost, so I specified localhost, and the port which I have given for my Eureka server is 8001. So I specified this port /Eureka. /Eureka is the base URI for the REST endpoints for the Eureka server. So I will have specified localhost colon 8001 /Eureka. Okay, so this is my application YAML configuration. Now let's look into the structure of my microservices. So this is my search hotel service, which is same as the one which was there in the monolithic application, but now this is in a separate Spring Boot project. Fine. So this is get list of specific hotels, and it is taking city, state, and country, and it is using the search hotel DAO to get all the specific hotels based on the search criteria. Okay. Now I have created my REST controller, which is exposing this. Okay. So now let's look into this REST controller. I have annotated it with REST controller or annotation. I am using this hotel service. I have auto-wired it, and I have created a method for getting the list of specific hotels. Okay. And I'm just returning the list of specific hotels from the search hotel service, which is auto-wired over here. Okay. And then I am using the get mapping annotation, and the URI is /API/search, and it produces the XML output. Okay. And in the arguments of this method, I am using the request param annotation for city, state, and country because I am going to pass it as the request parameters. Okay, so this is my REST controller. In the same way, for all other microservices, for example, registration service, I have the same structure. I have the registration service over here, and I have the registration controller over here. Okay, so now let's look into the web application. In the web application, I have my controllers as before, but now it is not calling the services as it was calling earlier. We have created new API service classes over here. These controller will be calling the API service, and the API service will be making the REST call to the microservices. So let's look into the search API service. Okay, in the search API service, I have auto-wired REST template. So where is my REST template? Let's look into Book My Hotel application, which is my main class. Here I have created my REST template bean. And once I have created a bean over here, I can auto-wire it over here. And also in my main class, I have annotated it with enable Eureka client. It is not a microservice, but still it is a Eureka client. And I have also added Eureka client dependencies in the form.xml file. Now let's go back to the search API service. So I have added the REST template over here, and I have written the method of getting the list of specific hotels. Here, first I am going to get the instance of my search microservice. Notice the name search-service. This is the same name which we have given for our search microservices. Now we will look into the get instance method soon. I'll just show you, but before that, let me explain you this method. So once I get the instance of this search service, I have the base URI with me, and I will create the complete URL, that is base URI, and concatenate it with /API/search. If you remember, in the search hotel application, I have, let's look into the search API controller. I have this path /API/search. So I am concatenating it with /API/search. Then I am printing it out, and I am also creating the query parameters based on the argument values which are passed on this method through the controller. And then I am using REST template to call my REST controller method. Okay, and getting the result back. Now, all other API services are working exactly in a similar way. Fine. Now let's look into this get instance method. The superclass, that is API service, has this get instance method, and here the discovery client is auto-wired. This discovery client is actually an interface, and when it is auto-wired, the implementation of a discovery client, which is Eureka specific implementation, will get inserted into it and auto-wired into it. Okay, and then we will use this discovery client to get all the instances based on the service name that we pass it. So the service name is the search service. In the case of search API service, it is calling get instance and passing the service name as search service. And I'm getting the list of all the service instances. So if there are 3 instances of my search hotel service running, then I will get the list of 3 service instances. But as of now, I am getting only the first instance and the URI of that first instance and passing it back. I have not written any load balancing logic, and I am not using ribbon as of now. So I am just picking the first instance and its URI and returning it back to the search API service over here, and then search API service creates a URL based on that. Okay. So now let's start our microservices. So as of now, first let's look into the Eureka UI, and here you will see that no instance is registered with Eureka. So now I am going to my boot dashboard. At the left hand side below, and I'm going to run all my microservices one by one. I'll just right click on this and I'll start the registration service. I will start the search hotel service. I will start the hotel service. I will start my booking service, and I will start my book my hotel web application. So all of these are starting as of now. So this green arrow indicates that it has started. So you can see registration service and search hotel service has started. Hotel service is also started now, and let's wait. Everyone should get started. Okay, so everything is started now. I'll go back to my Internet Explorer. I will refresh my UI, and I can see that all of my services are started. Now let's look into the instance ID of the search service. The instance of the ID of the search service tells me that my instance ID is the name of my system, the name of my microservice, that is search service, and the port on which it is running. Okay. Now, but other services, they are not showing it like this. Okay, in other cases, the instance ID is different. Why is it different? Let's look into that. So let's go to the registration service. Here, if I go to application YAML, I have specified this property eureka.instance.instance ID, and I specified the ID as spring.application.name, which it will pick as registration service, and I'm setting it with some random value also. Okay, so my instance ID changes now. So if you want, you can change the default instance ID with the instance ID of your choice. Okay, so now in this video, we have seen how to register the microservices to the Eureka server. My application will also run in the same way. There is no difference if I go and look into my book my hotel web application application.yaml file. I'll see that the port is 6060. So I'll go here and let me run here 6060. Okay, so if I try, I have logged in the similar way. I can see my registration details. I can see my existing hotel bookings, and I can search for hotels also. Fine. So everything's working as before. The only thing is that it is not coming from a single monolithic application, and there are 4 microservices and one Eureka client that is in the form of Book My Hotel web application. Fine. So in the next video, we will look into ribbon and load balancing. We will also be running multiple instances of the services, and we will see the load balancing. Okay. Thank you.